Hello and welcome to Everything That Aidan Watched in 2023, Part 2. Welcome back to the channel. If you don't know me, my name's Aidan Green and I like to talk about films and TV here on YouTube.com. And today, what I'm doing is the second edition covering July to December of everything that I watched. I did Part 1 a few days ago, that's back there on the channel. So if you like films and TV, you like hearing people talk about, break things down, then stick around. Let's start off in July, on the 1st of July, with Creed 3, which is a very problematic movie to start on, considering today of all days, the day that I'm recording this video is the day that Jonathan Majors has just been, confirmed that he did assault some women. So maybe the less said about this movie, the better, but Michael B. Jordan's great, and it's a pretty good movie, not as good as Creed 2, but 3.5 stars. Then I jumped into a a teenage movie of mine that just can do no wrong. 5 out of 5 stars. It's not worth that, but to me, it is the In-Betweeners movie. I love that movie. Whenever I'm feeling a bit down, what do? Chuck on the In-Betweeners movie. It's my life. I'm not going to sit down here and break down the In-Betweeners movie because that would be ridiculous. Then I started my Mission Impossible phase because I'd only seen 1 or 2 of these movies before. I'm going to skip through these really quick because I have done a full video on the channel this year ranking all 7 of the Mission Impossibles. How crazy is it that Dead Reckoning Part 1 is now just going to be Dead Reckoning? Because Part 2, they're retitling Part 2 because of the economic not greatness that was Part 1. And also, how the writer's strike has made Part 2 come out significantly later. So they're going for like a rebrand for Part 2, which is just weird. All those Blu-rays that say Dead Reckoning Part 1, but really should just say Dead Reckoning. That's a bit depresso. Anyways, Mission Impossible, 4 out of 5 stars. Mission Impossible 2, 2 out of 5 stars. But it's a lot of fun. It's got good value for money and the comedic value there. Mission Impossible 3, I gave a 3 out of 5 stars. Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, 3.5. Mission Impossible Fallout, 4.5. That is one of the best action movies of all time. And that's a bit of a stretch, but it is a very good movie. And Dead Reckoning Part 1, I gave 4.5 stars as well. But if I had to put one above the other, I'd put Fallout above Dead Reckoning because I think Fallout is just that teensy-weensy bit tighter than Dead Reckoning is. Also in July, I watched Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which is terrible. I would rather watch Kingdom of the Crystal Skull over Dial of Destiny, because Dial of Destiny is the epitome of like a Disney... It feels like a Disney remake, even though it's a new installment into Indiana Jones. Like, you know how whenever you watch like the Lion King remake, it has this feel about it that you're like, oh, here's the CGI thing, here's the Dumbo Disney remake that no one asked for. That's what this feels like. Dial of Destiny, it just looks so corporate. They didn't visually try and replicate any of the visual vibes of the first films. And in the end, it's like maybe Harrison Ford was a little bit too old. There's no real big action set pieces in this movie because I feel like maybe the guy was just a little bit too old. A mini-series that I then went on to watch was Normal People, which is 12 episodes long, 25 minutes each, and they are fantastic episodes. Like, it is a fantastic series starring Paul Mescal and Daisy Edgar Jones, I think is her name. I went on to work on a film later in this, so in like September, I was filming a short film of mine, and a lot of the visual references I pulled from Normal People because it's so unique in the way that it conveys, I think, maybe the anxiety of youth. In a lot of ways, its color palette is so nice and like sort of cozy, but also grim at times when it needs to be. And I just think it's a real depiction that is, a warts and all look at relationships in the 21st century. It is so damn beautiful. Then, here we go. This is like the most talked about movie event of 2023, right? Barbenheimer. I did watch them on different days. I wasn't able to do the double sitting, unfortunately, but I watched Oppenheimer first, which I think is the way to do it. But yeah, I watched Oppenheimer first, which was a 4 out of 5 star movie. I'm going to rewatch it because I'll be honest, I watched this at a super late session and I was a bit knackered during some of the talky scenes and they were just sort of going over my head. But I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I think The pacing early on was wacky to backy. It was crazy fast, and I just needed a moment to sit with Ops and understand Ops. But I don't want that to take away from how much this movie gets right. The entire second act with the bomb is incredible. Josh Peck rocks up, which really does jar you when you're watching it, and you're like, hold on a minute, what is Josh Peck doing in this movie? But Josh Peck rocks up and presses the big red button. Fair enough. And the last act is just incredible, right? It's incredible. I think the thing that I struggled with the most with Oppenheimer, and once again, I have a video on this channel talking about Oppenheimer. The thing I struggled with the most was bouncing between the timelines. And maybe it was because it was late at night and I wasn't quite as present as I could have been. But obviously there was the black and white stuff, and then there's the color stuff, and they're taking place in different perspectives or different time periods. But then also within the colored stuff, there is different time periods taking place in the colored stuff. And I found that a little hard to follow. But once again, maybe that was just a late night session problem. Then I watched Barbie, which is a sugar-filled rush. I've come to love this movie more and more. When I first watched it, I thought, I really respect this for what it is. It's a 3 out of 5 star movie. I can see why people would love it. It's great to see a female-driven blockbuster doing this damn well. The production design is incredible. The music is incredible. But I sort of kept describing it as, well, it's just Toy Story. A toy goes out into real world and has like an existential crisis, right? But I guess I've listened to quite a few podcasts with the sound team. IndieWire had a great little close-up on the whole sound production of the movie, of the soundtrack and the score, which was really insightful to listen to. And the more I listened to that and listened to what they were going for thematically, the more I've come to really appreciate Barbie. It's not going to be my favorite film of 2023, but I really do appreciate it for what it was. But a nice little surprise in 2023 was Talk to Me, which is an Australian horror movie directed by the Raka Raka brothers, who you probably know from YouTube, right? They were the clown people. They'd run around making videos of like superheroes smashing shit, just home movies basically. Got mega big on YouTube, and now have their very first movie picked up by A24, which is Talk to Me. It's a South Australian movie, and then so I think it was funded by Screen South Australia, and then A24 picked it up on the festival circuit for the full distribution of it. I think, I could be wrong about that. But this movie is crazy spooky. I took my girlfriend on I think it was our 6-year anniversary out to watch Talk to Me, and it wasn't the best decision. She kind of, I think, thought about leaving me at times during this movie, because this movie is fucking crazy. It is fucked up. But so along for the ride. It is the most thrilling and into a new sort of horror IP that I've been in a really long time. I was really engrossed. I didn't want the movie to end. It was the first time in ages, because people are making such long movies these days, even with Oppenheimer. And I said I was watching it in a late session, but even with Oppenheimer, I was sort of waiting for it to end by the time I got to the end. But Talk to Me? I wanted more of that, so I can't wait to see what the Raka Raka Bros do next, and I'm glad it's done pretty well financially and critically. Then, moving on to August, I watched a documentary called A Bunch of Amateurs, which is a little English documentary about an amateur filmmakers club, and they're all like in their 80s and 90s or 70s. They're all elderly, except for a chosen few who are of the younger generation. And it feels like nostalgic and beautiful and sweet. It's a really wholesome movie to watch that is also quite sad. And it's just like, I think quite often, me doing this kind of YouTube thing, as well as doing, the filmmakery side of my life that I like to do, sometimes you start to take yourself a little bit too seriously. And watching a bunch of amateurs and just watching amateur filmmakers just do it because they love it is super refreshing. And I was so charmed by this documentary. It's pretty short, and I'd highly recommend watching it if you get a chance. Then, so I gave that 4.5 stars. Then I watched Puss and Boots, The Last Wish. I've never watched Puss in Boots before, so I just dove straight into the sequel for obvious reasons. Everyone's talked about it. Gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It's got a great all-star cast. The visuals are incredible. The story is sweet. I think it's around 90 minutes long, so the pacing goes like that. It is... I feel like kids' movies are really taking a good turn at the moment. Like kids' animations, they're trying some things. I've not had a chance to see Ninja Turtles yet, but I know that they've tried to, freshen it up and do some funky things visually and just telling a good story along the way. And I really love that. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish was a really welcome surprise for me. Didn't necessarily live up to the hype that everyone was leading it to be, being like the best movie of all time. No, but it was really good, and I think it deals with death, which I think is a subject that a lot of kids' movies are too scared to deal with because death is dark, right? But Puss in Boots does it in such a wholesome way that you can't help but just be charmed. Just be charmed. After Puss in Boots, I watched A Good Person, which is Zach Braff's new film. Zach Braff, if you don't know, he's the main character in Scrubs, plays JD, and he's gone on to make a bunch of feature films. He directed Garden State back in like 2003. Wish You Were Here, or Wish I Was Here, which was alright. Garden State is incredible. Wish I Was Here is alright. I haven't seen his big tentpole movie Going in Style with Morgan Freeman and all that. But A Good Person is his return to directing. And I was really excited for this. I've been following the production for it for a long, long time. And I gotta say, this is probably the worst movie that I've watched in 2023. And I hate saying that because I'm a big fan of what Zach does out there. And this isn't... this was just bad. It was just poorly made. The only saving grace in this film is Florence Pugh in the starring role. And Morgan Freeman's really good as well. But I think his character is just so nonsensical that he kind of gets shafted. Whereas Florence Pugh is a really, really hard performance, and she really nailed it. They do think like it's just a drama, and then all of a sudden there's a gun pointing at someone's head in the last act, and it just feels very student filmy in that way. The whole way through it, there's all these like very cliche things, and I was so mad. My Letterboxd review here says literally just a student film bingo card. It's so cliche driven, and it pains me to say that. Then at the end of August, I watched Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring, which I've already watched in part 1, and now I've rewatched it in part 2. But what I watched it as this time was the extended edition, which was great. I love the first half, how you have much more time in Hobbiton. I think that's something that's so sweet, and you don't necessarily need it in the theatrical cut, but in the extended cut, I welcome an extra like 20 minutes, 30 minutes in Hobbiton. It's fantastic. I have like a child's brain that's been melted by the TikTok generation, so I couldn't sit down for 3.5 hours to watch this. So luckily, the 4Ks, the movies have to be split onto 2 discs, and they kind of end at the perfect time. So I kind of watched it over 2 days as 2 separate movies split up. And the second disc, so like the last hour and a half of this movie, the extended edition is just like more action, which I don't think I really needed, because the action scene going through the caves and the tunnels in the theatrical version is long enough as it is. But hey, it was a fun ride. I've got the 4K box set now of all 3 of them. So I've been meaning to watch the second and third, but it's hard to carve out time to commit to watching these long ass movies. On to September. I watched The Haunted Mansion, which I gave a 2 out of 5 stars. And The Haunted Mansion is like a fun romp. I had far more fun with it than I thought I would, but it's still not a very good movie. It's everything you'd expect from this Disney movie. Yeah. I kind of like the visuals, the colors they went for. It was funky. Then I revisited a favorite film of mine, one of my favorite films of all time, written and directed by Richard Curtis, About Time, which is, that's a 5 out of 5 star movie for me. I love it. It's just adorable, and I spoke about it a lot in my every film I watched in 2021 video, because that was sort of my film of the year that year. I know it didn't come out in 2021, but that was the first time I watched it. And I love it. I think the performances are there. The sound is amazing. And just the general vibe is everything that I wanted to replicate in the movie that I was making in September. So then I watched In Bruges, which is, for me, a 4 out of 5 star movie. Martin McDonagh's one of his first movies from 2008. And it stars your boys Colin Firth. And I always forget his name, and everyone's gonna be yelling at me, but I'm terrible with names. Brendan Gleeson, there we go. And these guys are really, really great together. In Bruges, give me some of that location filming. I really love it. I don't know how much I have to say on it. But all I can say is Martin McDonagh really writes just good, interesting, contrasting characters really well. That's been sort of a staple of the works that I've seen of his so far. And I'm a big fan. Then I watched Encanto, which was a 3.5-star movie for me. There was some nonsensical stuff going on in there, but it's a kids' movie at the end of the day with really good music. So Lin-Manuel Miranda just has to put his name on bloody everything. But everything he puts his name on tends to be at least pretty good, because after that, I watched Tick, Tick, Boom again, which is a fantastic movie, 4.5 stars. The themes of that, like you're getting older, but you're trying to still hold on to doing these youthful things that you've been so invested in, like you're the life that you pictured for yourself is getting really hard to do because you're having to adult, and external pressures in life needing to force you to adult is extremely relevant to me, and I think anyone my age. And Andrew Garfield was absolutely robbed at the Oscars for this, because this for me was the best performance of 2021. Like that's a no-brainer. He's incredible in this, and the music, perfect. Okay, in part 1 of this video, I mentioned that I have a soft spot for rom-coms. They always have to be really good rom-coms, like movies like Love Actually, About Time, those sort of movies that are actually sort of well-made rom-coms, usually written by Richard Curtis. So I guess I was feeling all that lovey-dovey rom-comness, and I went on and watched Love at First Sight, which is a Netflix original movie that came out this year. It is so bad. It is really bad. It is I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. I knew it was bad going into it. I saw the trailer and thought, ooh, we're in trouble here. Doesn't mean I wasn't charmed by it. And some of the cliches that came on were a good fun time. I was feeling the romance. My heart was thumping the way that they wanted it to. The final little line, the little bit of text that comes on the screen at the end, it started and it's so predictable, but then they do a spin on the predictability of it. So it's kind of cool. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. If you've got a lovely night in with your partner and you want a bit of a laugh, maybe have some like some churros, some chockies, maybe a cheese board, some wine. Love at First Sight is the perfect movie for that, okay? After that, I watched The Creator, which is, what's his name? Is it Gareth Roberts? Gareth Edwards movie. And it's his new film. It's sort of an amalgamation of monster with like the sort of alien, ambitious CGI stuff with Rogue One, I guess. Like it feels like a more grounded version of Rogue One in a way. I don't know. It's a very guerrilla movie, and I really like this. There were some bits where it felt just a little bit military action stuff that I'm not that into. That's one of the reasons why I don't really like the Avatar movies, because I'm just not really into big military films. Like, it's one thing, like I do like a good bit of action, but if you're putting in boys in military suits and stuff, that just isn't really for me. But the whole time through the movie, I was going, yeah, this is alright, this is perfectly fine. But I had to give it like an extra star or so on Letterboxd, giving it 3.5 stars, because the final moments of this movie really did move me. Like, it like chilled my spine, the climax of this movie. It was very emotional. So I thought that really shows that Gareth Edwards did a really good job with this film. Then I revisited a classic movie that is nowhere near as good as it could have been, which is Yesterday. I give it a 4 out of 5 stars, but I love that movie. Lily James isn't she just everyone's crush? Like, come on, Lily James. She's fantastic. Yesterday, it's that Beatles movie, right, where everyone forgets about the Beatles. It is written by Richard Curtis, who I've said I love, so it's definitely got the writing there. I really love the way that it's written. It's beautiful in the most Richard Curtis way. Why he didn't direct it, I don't know, because what we do get instead is Danny Boyle directing it, which sounds like a no-brainer. But Danny Boyle likes to do some wacky shit, and I kind of feel like this movie did not need the wackiness of Danny Boyle. There's an element of, because it's the Beatles, and the Beatles were, they were all wacky and stuff, so I can understand the need to go for a wackier direction than Richard Curtis, but at its heart, it's a lovely little love story. It's a lovely little feel-good story. So I feel like Richard Curtis would have been the better choice. I don't know why he didn't direct it himself, but, you know, I still really enjoy the feeling of it, and I'm a massive Beatles fan, so hearing those songs all the way through the movie just leaves me with a pep in my step. Bangers after banger. Then I watched the mini documentary series on Netflix called Beckham, which I'm giving 4 out of 5 stars. Obviously, it's about David Beckham and Victoria Beckham as well, in a way. Their relationship, how it impacted Beckham as a footballer / soccer player, and I really was charmed by this. I have really gotten into sport the older I've got, and so watching Beckham, I literally, some games where I didn't know the result was on the edge of my seat for it. And I've heard I was talking to my dad the other day, and he's a Manchester United supporter, and he said he watched Beckham recently. And there's a game towards the end of episode 2, right after Manchester United get the treble, so they win all 3 of the major leagues that they can go for. And my dad said that he was feeling it. Like, he'd watched those games in the 70s or 80s when they happened, but then he was like feeling it again. He was getting up and about as it was happening in the documentary. And then he said he sort of cried a little bit when Beckham got the goal. Was it Beckham that got the goal? I think that got them in front to win the treble, and I thought that was really sweet. So the movie's really good, and it's directed by the documentary is really good, and it's directed by Fisher Stevens, who you may all know as Hugo from Succession. And I love my barky boy, because he's got that dog in him. Hugo got that dog in him. Some people were saying he needs to shut up in this documentary, but I loved hearing Hugo, but maybe that's just because I love Hugo. Then at the end of October, I watched Killers of the Flower Moon, which is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Scorsese film that I've seen. Granted, I've not seen a lot of Scorsese movies. I can count on one hand how many Scorsese movies I've seen. Sort of a gap in my film critic-ness is Scorsese, which is a big one, so I should fill that void soon. But Killers of the Flower Moon really was fantastic. It raced along for me. I could have done with just like the pacing just coming together a little bit more in the third act. I thought it did. A lot of the movie does go at like a slow pace, but enjoyably slow. Like, I never felt like it was dragging. It was just a slow burn movie. But I did feel like the third act could have done with just a bit of oomph, just some slightly quicker scenes, just to throw you towards that climax. But either way, I was really on board with this movie. The ending moved me incredibly, and I was a big fan of it. Moving on to November. Elemental, 3.5 star film. It's got a love story in it. Of course, I was going to love it more than most. And it's Pixar. It took me a while to come on board to Pixar's animation style with this one. It is a very different animation style to what they usually do, which I got to give them credit for. They're shaking it up, you know. Big fan of that. And the story itself is a bit of a mixed bag. The love story stuff works for me. Some of the larger city world building stuff didn't necessarily, and I think the movie tries to do a little bit too much, because it has this like Romeo and Juliet style love story, and then it's also got this side of like moving on from your parents, letting go of your parents. There's this whole heritage side of it where you feel like you've got to owe your parents stuff for the sacrifices they've made for you. You owe that, like, you then have to sacrifice your life to live up to everything that your parents wanted you to be. And so I do think it does tackle a lot of those things, and they all have their own scene and time to shine. But when you look at it as a collective, I do think it does juggle a little bit too much there. Then I watched Children of Men, because I love Alfonso Cuarón, and I'd never seen this movie before. And this is a 5-star movie for me. This was incredible. I cannot believe how good the VFX in this film look. Compare it to Captain Bloody Marvel. Just watching the trailers of that. Children of Men is leaps and bounds better visually than Captain Marvel. And this film came out in 2006. 2006. I think the concept is so unique. The pacing is incredible. It is thrilling. It is intense. And the performances are fantastic. So, Alfonso Cuarón, I wish he'd make some movies faster, because he doesn't make a lot of them. And I'd like to see more Cuarón films. Thanks. Then I watched The Killer, which I also did sort of a mini review on the channel, which I'm giving a 3.5 stars to. It feels very Fincher in a really good way. That's a compliment to the movie. The Fincherness of the movie works well, but I think the plot was just a little bit too ordinary. Like about halfway through the film, I sort of understood where they were going with it. And then from then on, there wasn't really any twists or turns. It was more just a waiting game of waiting for specific story beats to kick in that I'd known were coming. And maybe I just expect a little bit too much timey-wimey stuff from Fincher or too much unpredictableness from Fincher. But yeah, still a good movie. Just it's not one that I'm going to really be remembering in the next couple of years, I don't think. Jeez, I am sweating like a motherfucker right now. It's getting very stuffy in here. I can see like water streams going down my leg. That's how hot it is in here. Let's talk about Looper, which I gave a 4.5 stars because I love Rian Johnson. This looks very much like a Rian Johnson movie. And I watched this movie a long time ago in the lead up to The Last Jedi. And so I revisited it here and I was really on board with it. I think Bruce Willis, I know, obviously, we're not going to see much more of Bruce Willis because of everything that he's got going on with his personal health at the moment, which is a massive tragedy. But I wish we did get to see more of Bruce in some more versatile roles because I've always known him as a bit of an action man. And every now and then I come across a film of his where you see an extraordinary range from him. And I love seeing that. I think Rian Johnson is one of the best directors working today. And say what you want about The Last Jedi, I think I will die on the hill that it is possibly the best directed Star Wars movie. It's not the best Star Wars movie, but just in terms of visuals and unique performances, I think he just pulls so much from his actors and his talent, and I think he really knows how to get the best performance out of any actor. I think it is, now I'm talking about Last Jedi for no reason, but I do think it's Mark Hamill's best performance as Luke Skywalker, and I think films like Looper, like both the Knives Out films, showcase that. They're all of his movies are visual masterclasses. They all have the best performances you've seen of those actors in years. So Looper was, the same. It really was the same, mixed in with a cool sort of timey-wimey time travel plot. It's a blast, and I've got nothing more to say of it other than that. Then I watched The Ratcatcher. I was intending on watching all of Wes Anderson's new Netflix short films based on Roald Dahl's, and The Ratcatcher is one of them. But I think I watched this one and just sort of thought, it's obviously really good. It's obviously a Wes Anderson film, but sometimes it's like I feel the same with The French Dispatch, right? Where it's almost like Wes Anderson knows what his style is now, and he's putting too much time into his style and making the most Wes Anderson movies ever, rather than just using that style to serve really good storytelling. I've not seen Asteroid City yet, so hopefully that proved me wrong, but The Ratcatcher sort of confirmed this for me. It was stylistically cool and interesting, but at the end of the day, the way that the style presents the story made me void of being attached to these characters. So, but it is only a short, it's a bit of fun. I'm not that mad. I gave it a 3.5 stars. It's still really good. Then I watched The Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which I gave 3 out of 5 stars, which was surprisingly fun for what it is. I didn't need more Hunger Games movies, but we've got one here, and surprisingly fun. Went in with zero expectations, and I left pleasantly surprised. I don't think it really conveyed the poverty of the district life in the third act, and I think the third act itself really lacked pacing. I think lacked pacing is such a nothing sentence, isn't it? I think it needed to up the pacing and the stakes in the third act, because what happens in the end is you have this love story, which again is probably why I kind of like this movie a little more than I should have. But I don't want to spoil it, but the way that love story pans out, I think happens way too quick. The way that the characters start to see each other in a new light happens way too quick. And I think they could have made a second movie out of this, exploring that change and watching their relationship take the course that it takes. But either way, I'd recommend watching it because it is good, and it's probably the first two movies have great Hunger Games sequences in it, and the last two don't really. I mean, the third one I don't think has a Hunger Games in it, which is fine. The third one's alright. But definitely this was a step up from like the Hunger Games sequences of the later Hunger Games films. So that's that's cool. And Rachel Ziegler is an absolute scene stealer. She's fantastic, isn't she? Then I watched a couple of mini-series over on BritBox. Years and Years, It's a Sin. So Years and Years and It's a Sin. Both written by Russell T Davies, which I think is the best showrunner working in the UK at the time. If you all know anything about me, I'm a massive Doctor Who fan, and he's obviously the guy at the helm of Doctor Who at the moment. So when he was bringing back his new episodes for Doctor Who, I went and checked out the last couple of miniseries he'd done, and I'd seen them both before, but I thought I'd revisit them, and they're both fantastic. Years and Years kind of has a little bit of a dud ending, I find, but the first 5 of the 6 episodes, they're all gripping and tragic, and the ending of episode 4, I think, just has me in tears every time I watch it. It is phenomenal, and It's a Sin is fantastic. It's tragic. It's beautifully written in terms of its characters. It's beautifully shot by, I think, Peter Hoare directed it. And at the end of the day, it tells a really real story, something that was obviously extremely personal to Russell T Davies. And it takes some big swings in that last episode. It goes places that I don't think anyone necessarily thought that it was going to go. And massive credit to Russell for doing that there. Then, as part of Doctor Who's 60th anniversary celebrations, I watched their new sort of TV movie sort of thing, which is Doctor Who, The Daleks in Colour, which is a colorization of a 1963 serial, the second ever story of Doctor Who. So it was in black and white at the time, 7 25-minute parts. This was shown on, I think, BBC 4 or something, cut down to 75 minutes and colorized, which I gave 3 out of 5 stars. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy some of the silly quirks that they did in this new edit. The colorization looks incredible, and it's always so interesting to see old, tired, long studio stories from the 60s sort of brought to life in a new way. So big credit to the team for that. But at the end of the day, the pacing is erratic. The plot involves a lot of going from here to here to here, back to here, back to here, back to here, to here, back to here, here, back to here. And I just think that makes it really hard to cut things down, because you can't really cut out whole sequences of them going from place to place without the story not making sense anymore. So you end up in these sort of scenes that feel more like montages, and the whole last 40 minutes feels like a montage rather than scenes in a TV show / TV movie. It feels very much for the TikTok generation, but hey, if it brings new fans, young fans into classic Doctor Who with this faster pacing and brighter colors, then I'm on board with them doing this kind of thing again. Then I watched Arrival, which I haven't seen for many, many years, since about 2016, 2017, which I gave a 4.5 stars. It is beautiful and absolutely damn heartbreaking. So damn heartbreaking that I don't even want to talk about it that much, because it's fucked me up. It's directed by Denise, our boy Denise, right? Yeah, Denise Villeneuve, who goes on to do some incredible things after that. And this was obviously his big breakout movie, and credit to him, because he does some of the most iconic visuals in sci-fi. From Dune to Arrival, these movies all have iconic looks and set pieces in them. The design of the spaceship, the design of the monsters, the design of their way of communicating is so unique. And Denise deserves everything. Absolutely everything. Moving on to December. So this is the last movies I'm going to be talking about here, which has been a pretty good month for me and movies. I watched Napoleon on the 3rd of December, I gave it 3.5 stars. It's obviously Ridley Scott's new film. It put me to sleep, I'm not going to lie. The love element of it was, I think, really good, because the performances really tell a unique love story there. And the set pieces all were fantastic and action-packed, but I think it just needed to spice up the storytelling a little bit. I felt like it tried to cover so much of Napoleon's life, but really the things that were working best was the through line of his relationship. And I think they should have focused on this being like, no, this is the Napoleon love movie. There'll be a few action set pieces along the way, but I don't think it needed to necessarily go out to try and tell the full Napoleon story. I thought there was similar to my thoughts on Babylon, I feel like there was a really solid movie in here buried under a lot of other stuff. Then, I watched all the Doctor Who 60th anniversary special movie things, and they were all pretty good. But obviously I got a podcast for that, so if you want my thoughts to that, link down below. Then I watched Home Alone for the first time. Also did a Christmas special version of this YouTube channel. I did a Christmas video watching Home Alone for the very first time. 4 out of 5 stars. Good fun, family movie. Nothing that I didn't expect from it. And then I watched Love Actually in concert. So I went to a theater where they performed all the pop songs, all the orchestra, all the soundtrack live, watching the movie, which was just a beautiful Christmas treat to go on with my old girlfriend, and we had a lot of fun, good laugh, had a few beers and things watching it. I don't know what there is to say about Love Actually. It's obviously a really great Christmas movie, one of my favorite Christmas movies. I understand that people have their problems with how it's aged, the lack of diversity in the casting, things like that, and I do think that is a big... Yeah, I think those things are worth talking about. But I still really like the film. And seeing it with a live orchestra was just a new way of seeing it. It's like in 2021, I watched Love Actually for the first time. In 2022, I then went and watched it at the rooftop cinemas at Christmas with my girlfriend. And then in 2023, we've now watched it with a live orchestra. God knows how I'm going to watch it in 2024. Let's finish up this list. Like I said, these are the last movies that I've watched at the time of recording, which is the 19th of December. So my last 3 movies that I watched, to bring this all round in a full circle. Sorry if you can see my sweaty armpits right now. It is so hot in here. But the last 3 movies I watched, bringing this round in a lovely full circle, is the Before trilogy. I got the lovely Criterion Collection Blu-ray for my birthday, and finally sat down. I watched Before Sunrise again, which I think is my favorite of the 3. Then I watched Before Sunset, which is obviously incredible. I love how tight that one is. It feels really, really tight. I think it's got the best pacing of the 3 of them. And then I watched Before Midnight, which, as it went on, the more I watched it, the more I enjoyed it. And that continued after I finished watching it. So I sat there and was like, yeah, that was good, but probably my least favorite one. And then I sort of soaked it in, and I still think it's my least favorite, but I really love it more and more the more I think about it. And these movies are so consistent in terms of how good they are. I think the only reason that the other 2, for me, surpass Before Midnight is because I just personally love just 2 people. I love the simplicity of the first 2, which I think the third one did sort of find its way back to come the end of the movie. But there was like a whole bunch of other characters early on, and they all do serve a purpose to the plot. But I don't know that the performances were the best with the supporting cast. But I just didn't believe them as much. But when the plot sort of found its footing and those extra cast members did serve a purpose in the plot, then I was sort of all for it and was well on board with this movie. And the ending really moved me. Will they make a 4th Before movie? I know they've gone past the 9-year span that they've been doing these movies in. I hope we get one last Before movie, but not for another decade. I reckon they've been making these movies every 9 years. I reckon wait 18 years and then do a 4th and final one. And that really is like people in their 60s looking back on life. I feel like that would be a unique perspective to take. So hopefully we get that. But already with what we have from the Before movies, I absolutely love. And so for me, if I was to pick a movie of the year, it would be After Sun for me. I know that it came out in other countries in 2022, but that in Australia was a 2023 release, and I really bloody loved After Sun, so that has to be my favorite movie that came out this year. And then in terms of my favorite movies that I watched this year, it doesn't have to have come out this year, it just has to have been this Before trilogy, because the romance is lovely, the subtlety of the filmmaking is incredible, and I love when you get these sequels where they start to involve the cast members in the writing process, because it starts to feel personal, especially for these movies that are very personal and where the cast members are so similar to the characters. And watching them behind the scenes, it's clear that there's not a lot between the cast and the characters. They are very, very similar. Only every now and then does Richie Boy have to turn around and say, no, that's an Ethan Hawke thing, not a Jesse thing. You know what I mean? I love those movies to bits, and I hope I can't wait to watch them again. I'm going to watch Before Midnight again really soon, because I think I'll love it even more on rewatch. But that was a 4 out of 5 stars for me, whereas the other 2 are 5 out of 5 stars, which is a pretty good track record for a lovely trilogy. Anyways, woohoo! It is hot in here. I'm going to end this video ASAP. I really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know down below what your favorite movies were of 2023. or movies that you just watched for the first time in 2023, because I'm always looking for new movies that I've missed, so they don't have to have come out in 2023. I'm thinking about doing this monthly, so I don't have to sit in a room in the middle of summer to record these videos in the future. I'm literally dripping in sweat. So maybe I'll start doing, I know everyone does them, but maybe I'll start doing like everything I watched in January. We will see. Like I said, I'm in Japan for most of January, so the videos will be stopping from here on out till late January. Then I'll be back making more content. But hopefully whilst I'm on my trip, I'll have some lovely time to watch some movies, and I can't wait for that. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for a great 2023. It's been by far the best year on my channel. So hopefully we can continue growing in 2024 and go above and beyond, make some new friends, talk about some new movies and TV shows, because that's what I love to do. My name has been Aidan Green. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and have a wonderful start to 2024. See you next time.